What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? When I was a teenager, I worked at a novelty tourist shop near me. Being the idiot that I was, I stole a wad of cash from the store. It was $100 in ones. I told nobody, but they knew it was missing. Right about the same time, a co-worker who was always trying to get me fired was telling someone she got about $100 in tips from her other job. They ended up firing her because they didn't trust that it wasn't her. Not super dark, but mine is also stealing from my employer. It was a seasonal job, and they told people if you came back next season, you'd get a raise. Next season, I got a 50-cent per hour raise and mentioned it to a couple other people who had also returned, who it turned out didn't get a raise. They went and complained to the boss, who then took my raise back and gave them each 25-cent raises. I argued with the boss for a bit, but eventually just decided I'd steal a few bucks per shift to make up the difference. When I was young, probably around age 9 or 10, I was walking home with my dog from a house around the block when he cut the corner and walked diagonally through the yard of this super mean old lady who lived at the end of your street. She was in her yard at the time tending to these really fancy-looking rose bushes she had growing in beds along the border with her neighbor. My dog was a very friendly golden retriever who didn't even really come near her and certainly didn't do anything threatening, but she sprayed the fuck out of him with some kind of insecticide or other chemical she was using on her roses. I ran back home with the dog and hosed him off. He coughed a bunch, but seemed otherwise fine. I didn't tell my parents because somehow I thought I was going to get into trouble for letting the dog walk in her yard. I'm glad I didn't tell them though, because I decided that night to sneak downstairs, out the half-bath window and down the street to her yard, where I cut down every goddamn rosebush I could get my hands on. When I was younger, I lived with my grandmother. Not long after I turned 18, her health started to decline. That sort of decline that you know means she won't be around for much longer. Over the months, I did my best to take care of her, getting her to the hospital when she needed and other things. We had someone coming every day to help her with things I couldn't. Well, what my family doesn't know is that the night she passed, I was in the living room watching TV. My dog was in bed with my grandma, and I started to hear him whimper and bark. I knew what was happening. I knew that if I acted, I could potentially save her. I didn't want to watch her suffer anymore, though, to watch her live with so much pain and unable to do anything for herself anymore. So I made the choice to let her pass before making any calls. She lived 92 years, and the only regret I have is that she passed a month after I would have graduated if I hadn't been kicked out of school. She had been in good enough health at the time to go to my graduation. I still kick myself for how stupid I was back then. Edit. I didn't expect this much support. Thanks. I'm not torn up about letting her pass. I knew it was for the best. She was such a great person. She didn't deserve to live in such a poor manner any longer than she already had. I don't regret what I did. I regret what I had done that got me kicked out of school, that I didn't try and make it to graduation for her. I think I've lived my life so far in a way that she'd be proud of. Not graduating before she passed is the only regret I really have in this life so far, and I'm 35 now, so I think I'm doing pretty good. I feel you. When my dad died of cancer, after a painful final night during which my brother and I took turns watching over him, we both waited to call 911. We wanted to make sure he was dead. We used that thing you put on your finger that measures oxygen in your blood to be safe. My brother and I ended up waiting a few hours, getting our bearings, crying, talking. It was surreal. When I tried to pull off the device, my dad had already gone into rigor mortis and his finger wouldn't budge. That's one of my clearest memories of that day. Fuck, I just hope someone has the balls to let me go like this. I've struggled with disordered eating for at least a decade. It ebbs and flows. I know it's unhealthy, but the toxic part of me loves the feeling of being empty. Several years ago, it was really bad. I was at my lowest weight ever. I had brain fog, difficulty breathing. When I started eating again, my stomach would get really bloated even if I only ate a small amount. I gained weight in the last year or so, and my depression and anxiety got really bad for a while. My family thinks I don't want to spend time with them. However, I just wanted to stay home because trying on my clothes and the idea of being in public made me want to kill myself. It was easier on me mentally to just stay home. I can feel myself slipping back into my old, disordered eating habits, unfortunately. I had an IPS attack once and had to violently shit in a church grounds behind someone's car. Used underwear to wipe to and left that there. not proud. Ives attack once I had one in high school. I managed to clean any trace, and nobody found out. Nobody knew, except my father, who was unusually helpful, understood me, and supported me, and never talked about it again. It was my darkest secret half of my life, but then I understood that it's natural, and that I've took the good decisions, and I have nothing to be shamefully about. And also, I have way darker secrets now. When I was 16, I conspired with a heroin addict I met online to help me off myself with heroin and dump my body in a dumpster in exchange for my valuables. I lived in a small town, and he was in a bigger city where my school had an upcoming trip. We planned for me to slip away during the trip and meet up with him to do the deed. He chickened out last minute and ghosted me. I found my adoption papers a few years ago when I was looking for a copy of my birth certificate. I know my birth mum, I just never had a relationship with her. My maternal grandmother took me in 2002. I never knew she adopted me. I just knew that one day I ended up living with her after telling her one day I don't want to go back home. Lols. I also found the letter that my mom wrote as to why she was giving me up. That one really hurt. Edit. Didn't expect this many upvotes. Honestly, lol, thank you everyone for your kind word. My grandma is really the sweetest person ever. I'm forever grateful for her. But I just wanted to say now that I'm older, I understand why my mom did what she did, and believe it or not, we actually have a cordial relationship now. Lol, I did too. This brought back some unsettling feelings I thought I was over low, but I want to thank you guys for your own stories and kind words. They made me realize that I'm not the only one who had a rough life growing up, and I shouldn't let that stop me from healing and being the best that I can be. This has been one of the worst years of my life. I've been taking loss after loss, and I honestly felt like unliving myself. I kept coming back to read the comments, and I see how strong everyone is, and didn't let what they went through stop them from doing better. So I just wanted to say that I've made an appointment to start therapy again, and I'm going to be completely honest about how I truly feel and open up more. Thank you so much, Reddit. Also, I haven't been the best granddaughter lately, so I'm spending more quality time with my grandma and helping her out with whatever she needs. My past isn't getting better. I have nightly nightmares of the industrial accident I was in. I see my co-worker ripping his burnt face off every night. I no longer scream in my sleep because of it. I'm no longer terrified as much by it. Even though I know it's not my fault, I feel an enormous amount of guilt for what happened to him. Sometimes, when I'm not sleeping, I'll hear the scream he made in the distance, and it'll make my blood feel like ice. Therapy hasn't done much. My wife, her mom, and I bought a house about 2 years ago. Just from talking to the neighbors, I'd gathered that the family who lived here before had a daughter that was mixed up with the wrong people. We had some random person knock on our door at night, saying he needed gas. We are down a long driveway. No way you'd randomly walk up to our house to ask for help. I think he was looking for the people who used to live here, and then another time Sunday morning making pancakes for the family, I get a knock on the door, and it's 4 sheriff's officers saying they received a 911 call that hung up, and it was from the house. We don't have a landline, and I assured them my wife and 2-year-old did not make any call. They mentioned the name of the previous occupants, and I let them know we moved in earlier this year, and they seemed okay with that and left. Anyways, I was doing some yard work and struck up conversation with a neighbor. He saw the police cars and asked what was up. I told him the situation, and he just goes, oh yeah, that family was messed up. The cops were probably being cautious considering the shooting. What shooting? What shooting? I ask. He kind of looks at me with a sad, worried face. The shooting in your house. Wait, what I say, truly baffled. He then proceeds to tell me that about 2 years before the father in the house confronted his daughter and boyfriend he didn't like and shot and killed the boyfriend in the house. Our state doesn't have a disclosure law, so we never knew. I was blown away. All the strange happenings kinda made sense now. He said the friends of the victim had kinda terrorized them for a while cause the police were taking so long to press charges, slash tires, midnight fireworks, odd shit that the neighbors hated. I was shocked, but just said, that's crazy. But hey, do me a favor and never tell my wife or Mel about that. They are a little spooked by things like that. So the trouble is that we live in a murder house and I'm the only one of my family that knows. Your state doesn't have a death disclosure law or any disclosure laws, because the fact that the property is regularly visited by people looking for the guy who killed someone is absolutely the kind of thing that should have been disclosed. Talk to your realtor. I was molested on a cruise ship by an employee when I was 8. Happened about 30 years ago. It's heartbreaking hearing of so many people who were sexually assaulted as children and feeling like they have no option but to hide it, lest it cause irreparable rifts between friends, family, and other close ones. Just want to let all of you affected by this know that if you did go public, you're not the cause of any conflict, no matter how anybody else paints it. You were the victim of one of the most heinous things one human being can do to another. The source of conflict is all down to whoever perpetrated the violence against you, and the shame should not be yours to live with. My brother and I did a 23andMe. We discovered we have a half-sibling, same father, who is older than us. I messaged them, but no reply. Since the half-sibling is older, it was during my father's military career, which was short-lived because he got a dishonorable discharge, that he hides from his family still. Kind of similar story here. 6 years ago, when I was 24, my mum randomly told me I have an older half-sister that my dad completely abandoned. She only knew of my sister's mother's name, so I searched for her on Facebook and found my sister. She is the spitting image of our father, so I knew immediately it was true. Both my sister and her mum confirmed it, and my sister and I immediately started bonding. We are incredibly close now. My father's side was overjoyed when I found her, as they knew of her but never what happened to her. We've all welcomed her with open arms, except my father. When she reached out to him, he essentially told her to fuck off, then screamed at me that she wasn't my sister, and continues to call me the bitch that ruined the family. Her and I did 23andMe, and we matched as half-siblings, so now there's no denying it. I lost a shitty father, but gained an incredible sibling that means tanks more to me. Not a huge secret in comparison to some of these answers, but I feel the guilt of it often. After my fiancée passed, I napped all the time for over a year. My aunt was calling me one day and I just denied her call, went back to napping. It was my aunt calling because my grandma, who was very sick with cancer, wanted to say happy birthday a day before my birthday. Grandma died the next day. I should have picked up the damn phone. She still loved you and just wants you to be happy. It's okay to not be okay, and sometimes we miss important things for that reason. Fuck, I'm so sorry. My grandma died of cancer, and I feel the guilt of not talking to her enough too. It's not your fault. I'm here with you. My grandpa was stationed in Okinawa, Japan during the Korean War, while in the Marines. He hooked up with a woman there, and she got pregnant. So I have a Japanese aunt and a few cousins in Japan, whom I've never met before. Hank Hill. 2 years ago, one of my best friends and I went halfsies on a fuck ton of Xanax. On June 8th, we both took Xanax from the batch we split. I woke up, he didn't. No one knows I had anything to do with the drugs that killed him. And I don't know if I can ever bring myself to tell someone. I owe the bank 100. Hey bud, I think they know. I never have other plans that I just can't cancel. 4-0. Wallow in self-pity. 4:30. Stare into the abyss. 5-0. Solve world hunger and tell no one. 5:30. Jazzercise. 6:30. Dinner with me. I can't cancel that again. 7. Dinner with me. I can't cancel that again. 7-0. Wrestle with myself loathing. I'm booked. Of course, if I bumped the loathing to 9, I could still be done in time to lay in my bed, stare at the ceiling, and slip slowly to madness. In high school, I was a super good kid, straight A student who loved homework, keeping out of trouble, and who was quiet as hell during class. So anyway, there was this guy who was also in app classes with me, but he was super loud and obnoxious, but would pull stunts in such a way that he would have some margin of plausible deniability. Though we never spoke, I'm not sure he even knew I existed. He rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe it was from the one cold day when this other girl in our class had her nipples poking through her shirt, but she forgot a sweater, and he kept saying to her, "Diam, it's cold." Ha! Maybe it was from when he would pretend to be friends with kid, who was definitely spectrum and desperate to be friends with him to do the bully's homework for him, and then bully him the next day. So at random, sometimes once a week or a month, or once every couple of months, I would whistle. It's this high-pitched whistle that sounds like a tea kettle that I can do, while barely moving my mouth. Back then, no one knew I could do it except for my family. The super obnoxious kid always got in trouble. I was never once suspected. That's hilarious. I have a similar ability. I can make a chirping noise like a baby chick. When I was a kid, I was in church, ostensibly singing in the choir, but actually chirping to the music. My family downstairs knew it was me, and were all doing that trying not to laugh. But I'm almost ready to explode thing. Decades later, it's still a topic that comes up at family gatherings. My wife and I aren't officially married. No one knows. We had a ceremony and everything, reception. The whole 9 yards. We just never did the official paperwork. We realized that since she's going back to school, it benefits her financially to go through financial aid as single, rather than married. When she finishes up, we're going to head over to town hall and finish the last step. Lots of people do this, at least where I live. Big college town, financial aid is a big factor for people. And it definitely is better to be single. Doesn't actually mean you aren't married. Just that you found a way to show you love each other and that you are able to compromise with finances. Congratulations, and hope you a long and happy relationship. It's not my secret, but my mom's. And I'm not hiding it from everyone, just the person who it potentially matters to the most. When my mom was in high school in the 60s, she had a long-term serious boyfriend named Jimmy. They were each other's first. They were together for years and were planning on getting married. He went away to college. My mom stayed behind, but they were still together. You know what happened next? He cheated and got the new girl pregnant. He comes home to break the news to my mom. Abortion was not legal at the time. He basically says that he wants to be with my mom, but he has no choice but to marry this other girl. My mom was devastated. Here's a secret. My mom was also pregnant by him, but hadn't told him yet. She decided she wasn't ever going to tell him. Jimmy went on to marry the other girl and never knew my mom was also pregnant. She told me that she later threw herself down a flight of stairs to cause a miscarriage. My mom actually reconnected with Jimmy during the early days of Facebook. She didn't have an account, but asked me to look for him using mine. He was still married to the same person. My mom was married to my dad. They wrote to each other for a while, using my account. Signed their messages saying, "I love you." My mom passed away a number of years ago. I think about this knowledge I have that Jimmy doesn't. This major life event thing that he doesn't even know happened. That could have changed the trajectory of many lives. I'm certainly not going to tell him. It's not my secret to tell. Edit. There seems to be a part of the story that I didn't make clear enough. My mom had a miscarriage and never had that baby. It was an intentional miscarriage by throwing herself down the stairs. Jimmy is not my father. My cousin raped me when I was a kid, and to this day I haven't told anyone about it. It's been probably around 25 years ago or so, which makes me feel like it's not worth addressing after so much time. I absolutely hated it when his mom asked me why I didn't invite him to my wedding. I still don't know how I should have responded to keep that a secret. My mom was molested by her parents' cult leader when she was a pre-teen. In her 30s, she went to court and sent him to jail. It's never too late to speak up about being raped. If it's still affecting you, it doesn't matter if it's 25 days or 25 years, you'll need to address it somehow. I hope you are okay, but there's always therapy. When I was around 5 or 6, my mom and dad were fighting just about every day. Well, I was napping on the couch when my mom came in very upset and she shook me awake. She asked me if I saw the girl my dad brought home. I've always felt terrible for this BC. I hadn't seen anyone but my dad that whole day. I'm pretty sure he was just playing video games like usual, but for some reason in my sleepy kid brain, I answered yes. I said she was with him in their room. I'm honestly not sure why I lied like that, but they got a divorce shortly after, and I always felt like it was my fault. Until I recently found out my little sister is actually my half-sister, but that's a whole other story. Edit. For clarification, my dad had been cheating with my mom's sister, and my mom was cheating with one of their friends to get back at him. She thought he was cheating with a different girl, but found out later it was my aunt. Honestly, their relationship was on its way out. I don't feel bad about it now, since a few years ago we found out my little sister is my half-sister from the affair my mom had. Therapists specifically advise against asking young kids questions like this, because kids will seek their parents' approval to the point of lying if they think that's what the parents want to hear. Your mother was expecting you to say, yes, so. It wasn't that you lied out of nowhere. It was that you went along with what you thought she wanted you to say. You were just a little kid waking up. You probably told her the answer you thought she wanted. She shouldn't have done that, and they were going to break up anyway. It's shitty of a parent to put a young child in that position in the first place. Also, it sounds like divorce might have been the best outcome for that relationship anyway. In middle school, I made a smoking pipe out of copper pipe just for fun. I know you should not smoke out of copper as the fumes are potentially toxic. My stepdad took it from me and started using it. He smoked with it for years. I hated him for physically abusing me, so I never said anything. It's now 30 years later, and he was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and likely only has a few years to live. I hope he rots in hell. I don't know if it had any effect, but I like to think the copper pipe played a role in his sickness as karma for being an asshole. I like to think the copper pipe played a role in his sickness. Scientists long ago found that people with Alzheimer's have unusually high levels of copper in the beta amyloid plaques that are a signature of the disease. Source: it's entirely possible that it did. I was married for 13 years to my best friend. We had what I thought was a great, easy marriage. One day our 5-year-old daughter told me he was having her perform oral sex on him. I was shocked, devastated, and afraid. He was one of those fun guys everyone loves to be around. I immediately called the police, and he was arrested. When they started investigating him, they found out that he had been arrested while in college for exposing himself to very young boys. He only got a slap on the wrist that time because he came from a very wealthy family. One of his uncles was governor of the state we lived in. I was so ashamed I told our friends that he had an affair and moved away. But the truth was that he was in prison for 5 years. I picked up the pieces, sent our daughter to therapy, and spent the next 15 years being a mother, paying for private school, cool trips, etc. She was my life. Then when she went to college, he reached out to her over Facebook. When I saw she was communicating with him, I was shocked, devastated, and afraid all over again. I called and told her that she was an adult, but I thought she should be careful because he's not safe. She hung up on me and has not spoken to me since. That was 4 years ago. I sent her $40,000 a year still to pay for her medical school. It's all been almost unbelievable. Thank you for allowing me to share it here. People like him are able to spin things around and convince people spin-off stories. I wouldn't be surprised if he has convicted her that you made all that up or something like that. You did the right thing to protect your daughter. You did not ignore the problem like some others do. You did nothing wrong. I applaud you. I hope you find your peace. One day, maybe your daughter will realize you did the best you could. This is my worst nightmare. I commend you for your strength and perseverance in protecting your daughter, even if she doesn't understand that right now. I hope one day she comes to her senses and realizes what a great mother she has. I'm sorry this happened to you. He is vile for that. I am so sorry your daughter hasn't spoken to you and is contacting him again. People like him tend to manipulate and gaslight. I hope she's safe. You've done what you can. Please never give up on her. Most people in my family think that my mother recently died suddenly from complications due to cancer, but she really died from the toxic effects of oxycodex, of oxycodone, morphine, fentanyl, and methamphetamine. Seems as though she just had herself a secret death party. Not including the meth, but this is more common than you think with chronic cancer patients. Sounds like the concoction my mom drank on her last day in September, but it was sanctioned by the state Colorado made. It was a beautiful day with all of us there. She was eager to be done with her body. I'm sorry for your loss. I can't say I blame her. If I'm terminally ill, I'm smoking some fucking crack. I want to see what all the fuss is about before I go. My mom is in last stages of cancer, and as strong as she is, I still feel this is something that could definitely happen. My condolences on losing your mom. One of my closest co-workers, who is an integral part to our very large corporation, killed a man in his late teens and threw the body in a lake. He only got off on a technicality. I work remotely, so I don't build a lot of personal relationships with people I work with regularly. I googled his full name. It freaked me out at first, but I've kinda gotten over it. I wonder if anyone else knows. It happened 40 years ago. He will retire soon, and then I might ask another co-worker about it. I just don't want to stir the pot. Did you know Bernie from accounting is a murderer? I moved out of a house one time, and then some fairly quiet dude took my place. A couple months later, my old roommate got an email. Do you know who you're living with? And a link, let's just say. Guy made national news, and there's laws based on him. Still makes my skin crawl that I hung out with him a few times. Teps, here to Big Smith 40. I'm living with my mom right now, cause she's going there cancer. But to be honest, I can't wait to see her go. It sounds horrible, but I'd rather see her go than see her suffer even more. It's not like I would get anything out of her will. It's more like it sucks cause she's always in pain, and seeing her like that brings me pain. Edit. Thank you everyone for your responses. I've felt so alone on this for a long time. She's still fighting a long battle, but it's just getting worse every day. I appreciate the help that everyone has offered. It really helps a lot. Thank you. Visit us at Cancer Family Support if you ever need to talk. Edit. Thank you so much for the awards, truly, but please donate towards your local cancer charity instead. I created the sub while my mom was dying of colon cancer, and I'm glad it's helping people going through the same thing. Get your colonoscopies. This first part isn't exactly dark, but when I was a kid around 9 or so, my cousin, who was 12 at the time, would make out with me. I didn't really know better at that age, but thought I'd be in trouble if I talked about it. For whatever reason, about 6 years went by before I saw him again, and it was never brought up, never mentioned. He was like a totally different person. I sometimes wonder if it even happened. My memory isn't very reliable, and it was so long ago now. I'm in my 20s. Fast forward a little bit more, and I found out he died a couple years ago while cleaning a gun. Accidentally shot himself. My great-aunt, who's his grandma and who basically raised him, believes wholeheartedly that it was an accident. But I suspect it wasn't. He grew up around guns and knowing how they work and how to empty them and everything. I find the odds that he accidentally forgot to empty the chamber pretty low. I also know he was struggling with depression and brain damage from a car accident a year prior. But I won't tell my aunt any of this. I think it would break her heart. Edit. About the first part, I don't really know how I feel about it nowadays. It's just a thing that happened. I struggled with some weird negative emotions about it for a while, but it's so far gone in the past, and I live half a country away, that it's easier to just not think about it. About the second, I know accidentally shooting yourself is more common than it seems, but I have plenty of reason to believe it was suicide. I don't really want to break down the paragraphs of details, but he had a pretty massive accident a year prior, leaving him with brain damage, and it messed up a lot of his goals in life. That plus the depression he dealt with, and other factors, I think it was suicide. I hope it wasn't. My adopted sister knows her birth mother died in a freak accident. She doesn't know the cause of death was beheading. I worked with a guy that was a first responder to the accident. When I was around 9 years old, I used my mom's credit card to sign up my shitty alcoholic stepfather for a porn website in hopes of starting a fight and her leaving him. She did leave after another year or so. Current stepdad is a real keeper, edited to correct a spelling mistake. Holy shit, that's really clever. Good plan for a 9-year-old, TP. My wife is handicapped, and I lied to her that I find it hard to clean, cut up mushrooms. She has self-esteem issues because I can do things much easily than her. So I lied, and now she feels better. You monster. Ever since my daughter took her own life, I have been hiding how much pain I'm really in. My family is beyond dysfunctional, so it would create more crap for me to deal with. Although I did tell my mom to gargle donkey balls yesterday, and that made me feel slightly better. My ex-wife, the mother of my 3 kids, and the first love I ever had, committed suicide 2.5 years ago. I've been trying to be strong for my kids and help them through it. I'm still completely fucked up over it, and haven't had the chance to really mourn yet. It's awful, but my kids need me strong and here for them. It's better to talk to somebody than to let this stay bottled up inside of you. I know it might seem a bit cliché, but just letting it all out and becoming vulnerable to someone will cut a lot of weight off your shoulder. Good luck, and I hope the best. I'm not a parent myself, but it's not something any parent should go through. I don't know why, but I always keep thinking that one day I will cut all contact with everyone in my life, disappear from their lives, and just keep for myself. I don't know why I think like this. I have some good friends. One of my friends did this in 2015. I still look for him wherever I am, dream that he just shows up. I worry. He's my friend and I love him, but I'm so mad. We don't know if he's alive or dead, and it is heartbreaking. If you're reading this, I love you, but fuck you, bro. It's a common thought with depression. typically associated with something specific you don't feel like you have control over or can change. Edit! Because this is blowing up, I want to take the opportunity to remind people to take their mental health seriously. Talk to a therapist if you can, and if the therapist sucks, don't give up, change therapists. Here's a longer response. @Teps to your Reddit, Askreddit comments as ignishu. What a dark secret is secret, you're already hiding from everywhere is edit. As you saw Ledge pointed out, psychiatrists can diagnose, not therapists. Start there. Edit. Therapists can diagnose but not prescribe. I've had this thought. Everyone in my family is nagging me with the fact that I don't want to date girls anymore and think that I'm strange or gay. But I lost my girlfriend, which I assume I could have a good life with her. She committed suicide, and I never talk about that with them. I know I can speak with some members of my family, but my parents are different. Edit. Thank you so much, guys, for your kindness, but I don't want to discuss that at the moment with someone. It will bring back some memories that will make me more depressed than before. If your family know about your dead girlfriend and still make fun of you, then they're just a bunch of cunts.